In this battle, we have fought for the cause of liberty and for the peace of the world. Yet it is you, the members of the United States military. Because of you, our nation is more secure. Because of you, the tyrant has fallen and Iraq is free.
Hi everyone, you may call me Elena and this is True Crime Chismisan kung saan magkakwentuhan tayo about true crime cases that I find interesting. Meron din kaming Spotify for people who are driving, nagko-commute or nag-chores or kung ayaw nyo lang akong makita. Please consider subscribing para may mapala naman ako dito. Today's case is about the crime against the al-Janabi family. It's also referred to as the Mahmudiyah killings and it happened in Iraq. There are many layers to this case, so in this video, we'll talk about history, politics, the US military, and also social psychology a little bit. Sabi ko, iksian ko lang itong video na to, pero napahaba na naman kasi nga ang dami kong gustong i-add. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Ang programang ito ay naglalaman ng mga sensitibong tema, graphic violence, sexual assault at murder na hindi angkop sa lahat ng manonood. Ang gabay ng magulang o tagapag-alaga ay mahigpit na ipinapayo.
What do you picture when you think about Iraq? Usually, people think about this war-torn desert na parang may sepia filter. But it's not always been like that. Iraq is actually considered as the historic heart of Mesopotamia. Location-wise, you would see that it lies between two great rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates. If you have traveled enough, you will know that the great cities of the world have rivers running through them. So imagine having two rivers. So that just means it's prime location for human existence kasi meron silang steady stream of fresh water. And because of that, yun nga, meron siyang 6,000 years of history ng ancient people living there. If you know your history, you would know about the Sumerian people, Persian Empire, also the Babylonians. All of those, their settlement was actually in modern-day Iraq. After those empires, doon na nagsimula yung the caliphates of the Islamic era, including the Ottoman Empire. After the Ottoman Empire, dumating naman yung mga British because of course, it's the British and they have to be there. And then, that's how modern-day Iraq was formed. Meron ako nakitang footage from around 1950 to 1960 showing Baghdad, the capital of Iraq. And meron na silang mga wide boulevards, public pools, girls were going to school. So parang hindi ito yung Iraq na nai-imagine natin when we think about it now. Now let's talk briefly about the recent history that led to the events of our case. It all started in August 1990 when Saddam Hussein, the president of Iraq at the time, decided he was going to invade Kuwait. This is the start of the first Gulf War. We don't really know the exact reason why he decided to invade Kuwait, pero merong mga theories. One, meron daw utang si Iraq kay Kuwait and ayaw nila magbayad. Number two, masyado daw madaming pinoproduce na oil si Kuwait and parang bumababa yata yung prices ng petrol because of it. Number three, sabi ni Iraq, Kuwait daw was digging horizontally dun sa mga borders and taking their oil. We don't really know why, or maybe it's a combination of a lot of things, but like politics, geopolitics, and then because of that, the United Nations Security Council decided they're going to step in. They formed a coalition between 35 countries, led of course by the United States. Ang president nila at the time was George Bush Sr. And then they decided they were going to Kuwait and help Kuwait expel Iraq. And they did that. In February 1991, Iraqi forces were expelled from Kuwait. 10 years passed after that and walang major events na nangyari, or at least walang major events that were known to the public until 2001 when the 9/11 attacks happened.
Holy fuck!
Oh my god! Oh my god! Jesus fucking Christ! Chrissy!
Don't touch it.
Oh my god!
9/11 is considered as one, if not the most horrific terrorist attack on US soil. There were 4 planes from different parts of the United States bound to LA and they were hijacked by the terrorists. Their intended targets were the Twin Towers in New York, which was hit, Pentagon, which was also hit, and then the 4th flight was supposed to go to either Capitol Hill or White House, pero that flight did not hit its target kasi the passengers overpowered the hijackers. Osama bin Laden, the leader of the terrorist group Al-Qaeda, claimed the attack. I remember when this happened, it was such big news and ang dami talagang mga footage when it came collapsing down and ang dami talagang namatay. So naturally, the US wanted revenge. Sabi sa mga nabasa ko, walang direct links between Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, and Saddam Hussein of Iraq. Pero we really don't know why. But the United States decided they're going to hit two birds with one stone. While trying to get their revenge against Al-Qaeda, they're also going to wage war against Iraq and Saddam Hussein. This war that immediately followed the 9/11 attacks is called the War on Terror, and then humaba lang siya ng humaba. In March 2003, the US and the UK launched Operation Iraqi Freedom. Wala nang ibang sumama sa kanila na countries dito sa coalition na to, unlike the first war against Kuwait. Pero ang sinasabi ng US and UK, meron daw weapons of mass destruction si Iraq and they need to be stopped. So inattack na nila ng super si Iraq, especially Baghdad. And then in May 2003, they declared victory over Iraq. Merong famous video of Saddam Hussein's statue in Baghdad toppling over, and then George Bush Jr., the president at the time, gave a mission accomplished speech. After this, the US set up their own temporary government in Iraq. They dissolved the entire military, government, and also local police. This plan actually backfired because now there's hundreds of thousands of able-bodied people who are now unemployed. This fueled insurgents and unrest. During all of this, Saddam Hussein disappeared and went into hiding. He was only captured in December 2003. Tapos, he was charged, convicted, and then executed. Yung body niya was just thrown into the sea in an undisclosed location kasi they didn't want to have kind of like a shrine to him kung ililibing nila somewhere known. After Saddam Hussein's capture and execution, the US still stayed in Iraq. Sabi nila, it's because meron pa ding civil unrest. But I don't know, kasi ang taga nilang nagstay doon. Nag-start lang silang mag-pull out of the area around 2009. But still, even then, hindi pa din sila totally umalis. Meron pa din silang iniwan na maliit na force in the area until 2011 when finally the last of the US troops left the country. The War on Terror, which then became Operation Iraqi Freedom, in total lasted 9 years. Pero 3 years lang silang nawala kasi in 2014, the US is back there again dahil naman sa ISIS. I don't know if you remember news stories about ISIS na sobrang lumaki talaga, naggawa sila ng parang caliphate nila doon. And then in 2017, Iraqi forces and the US declared that ISIS caliphates have been disbanded or defeated. But even after the defeat of ISIS, the US still stayed. Ang official reason is that they want to help the Iraqi forces. Pero sabi sa mga nabasa ko and mga war analysis, they needed to stay there dahil naman sa Iran. Iran naman yung kinakatakutan nila now. Pero something happened in 2020. Si Donald Trump na yung president at this time. He ordered a drone strike against the second most powerful man of Iran while he was visiting in Iraq. Tapos, hindi to alam ng Iraqi government and military forces. So, parang sabi nila, this is a violation of their bilateral agreement. So, nagalit din si Iraq kay US. Sobrang daming nagpunta sa funeral niya in multiple cities in Iran. Tapos, ayun na nga, nag-retaliate si Iran. Binomba nila yung mga bases ng US sa Iraq. And then, in 2021, July, si Biden naman yung president, nagsabi siya na okay, aalis na kami. But even still, meron pa ding naiwan na around 2,500 military forces in Iraq. And then now, as of today, we know naman that there's an ongoing war in Iran, and that's still developing. Naturally, all this war required hundreds of thousands of soldiers. So, nag-research ako, paano ba yung recruitment nila sa US military? And then, na-realize ko, wala akong kaalam-alam at all about how it all works. Kasi even sa Philippines, hindi ko alam paano ba yung process nila dito. Wala akong kakilalang kahit isang sundalo in my life. Anyway, in the US, you can already enlist once you're 17 kapag may parental consent, or after 18, pwede ka na mag-enlist on your own. Ang requirement is dapat high school graduate ka or meron kang GED. GED is equivalent na parang pag-pass ng ALS test sa Philippines, Alternative Learning System. Meron ka dapat mapass na aptitude test, physical exam, and a background check where titignan nila kung meron kang past convictions or charges that may disqualify you. Sobrang daming benefits for them to join the military. So apart from pay, meron din silang housing and food allowance. Apart from this, meron silang full healthcare. Alam niyo naman sa US, di ba sinasabi nila na parang you're just one sickness away from bankruptcy. So full healthcare is a very big deal for them. And then meron din silang education benefit kung saan pwede silang makapag-aral with full tuition fee covered. Tapos after 6 years of service, pwede din ma-transfer yung education benefit towards their spouse or their children. Tapos nandun din yung longevity kasi it's a stable source of income and job. Tapos, after that, makaka-receive sila ng pension. After 9/11, sobrang na-fuel yung patriotism ng mga people. So, ang dami talaga nilang na-recruit na sundalo. Pero nung na-prolong yung war, doon na nag-umpisa na parang mahirapan sila na mag-recruit ng tao. Parang nag-wane na yung patriotism, but they still needed a lot of people because the war was ongoing. And because of this, medyo naging lax sila dun sa standard nila and requirements. Apart from the falling total number of enlistment, bumaba din yung quality ng mga taong nag-e-enlist. For example, bumaba daw yung number ng people who graduated high school. Tapos dun sa aptitude exam nila, meron silang tinatawag na category 4 passer, which is parang pasang-awa, na parang before, hindi matatanggap lahat yon or konti lang sa kanila yung matatanggap. Pero after humaba yung war, inaccept na din nila. Madami ding nakapasok with either medical or moral waiver. What this means is that nakapasok sila even if meron silang health issues or kung meron silang past convictions that would have otherwise disqualified them in the past. Now that we have all that background information, we can now finally talk about the case. Our case happened in a place called the Triangle of Death, which is in the south of Baghdad, Iraq. The Triangle of Death is mostly farmlands, pero grabe yung mga violent attacks in the area. Especially because it's near Baghdad, ginagawa siya na parang daanan ng mga attacks that would happen in Baghdad. But within the triangle itself, madami ding sectarian conflict between Sunni Muslims and Shia Muslims. Rampant yung suicide bombings, tapos merong very violent attacks na recorded where 125 people were killed and then another one where 98 people were killed. In September 2005, because of all this conflict, the US sent troops to secure the area. So under the 1st Battalion is the Bravo Company. The Bravo Company was tasked to secure and protect the civilians, and their forward operating base or FOB is located in Yusufiyah. Tapos under the Bravo Company naman is the 1st Platoon. Under niya, mayroong 3 squad, and then each squad would have around 6 to 10 soldiers. Dahil dito sa case na to, talagang naaral ko kung ano yung mga units ng US military. The 1st Platoon was tasked to create a joint security base, which is a base pero smaller than the FOB to the west of Yusufiyah. So meron doon na parang abandoned water treatment plant that they converted into this JSB. The base was always under attack by mortars by the insurgents. Tapos madami ding mga improvised explosive device silang nakukuha. Sobrang pangit ng conditions in the area talaga at that time. Tinignan ko sa Google Earth kung anong itsura in 2005. Tapos dun sa JSB, around it, sobrang wala kang makikita, sobrang dry lang. Tapos sabi, wala silang kahit basic amenities dun sa JSB, na wala silang shower, walang toilet, wala silang pagkain, puro ready-to-eat meals lang yung kinakain nila. Overworked na nga sila, tapos hindi pa sila makarest ng maayos. Apart from this, nawalan din ng consistency because of multiple changes in leadership. Nag-umpisa nung namatay yung platoon leader nila because of an improvised explosive device. So, napalitan siya, tapos yung pinalit sa kanya hindi efficient, so pinalitan na naman. Pero kahit ang daming naging palit ng leaders nila, the core soldiers remained the same. In hindsight, sabi ng mga analysts and also ng mga higher-ups in the military, dapat daw ni-rotate din nila yung mga soldiers para na-relieve yung pressure kasi nga they're always in a constant state of high alert. Kahit na wala silang parang large-scale na battle, like for example, World War I, sabi parang 80 days daw na deployed ka dun sa front lines, then afterward, ma-rotate ka. Doon, sila lang forever yung nandun sa location na yon. So, it's a constant daily threat na always on high alert sila for a very, very long time. Kahit i-escalate nila sa higher-ups na kailangan nila ng better resources, ng more manpower to secure the location, hindi sila binibigyan. In 6 months, 38 soldiers died from the 1st Battalion and then 5 of those from the 1st Platoon. They started as 30 people lang tapos 5 pa sa kanila yung namatay. Nagkaroon talaga ng parang notable shift in the sentiment ng mga soldiers in the 1st Platoon. Now, they're not focused on keeping the peace or protecting the civilians anymore. Parang naging constant battle siya for survival and they just wanted to get out of there alive. Nagbago din yung paningin nila sa mga Iraqis. Parang ang tingin na nila is all Iraqis are their enemies. One of the tasks of the 1st Platoon is to secure a 14-kilometer stretch of road that they called Route Sportster. It connects the FOB main base ng Bravo Company and the JSB kung saan nagsistay yung 1st Platoon. Nag-set up sila ng mga traffic control points or TCPs along Route Sportster. Tapos yung mga members ng 1st Platoon yung nagmaman noon. In total, they set up 6 TCPs pero super undermanned sila. Supposedly, every TCP would have an entire squad of 6 to 10 soldiers and 2 trucks. Pero in reality, yung mga TCPs only had 3 to 6 soldiers and 1 vehicle. Itong pagmaman ng TCP really put a lot of strain on the soldiers kasi nga, hindi fortified yung mga traffic control points eh. So parang they felt like sitting ducks and they felt vulnerable dun sa location nila. And dahil kulang nga sa tao, overworked sila. 200 meters behind one of the TCPs is the house of the Janabi family. The father, Qasim Hamza Rahim, was 45 years old. Mother is Fakriya Taha Muhassen, 34. They had 4 children together, Abir al-Janabi, 14, Mohammed, 11, Ahmed, 9 years old, and the youngest daughter, Hadil, who was 6 years old. The Janabi family was only renting that farmhouse from someone who cannot take care of the land. So ang deal nila is si Qasim yung magpa-plant and mag-nurture ng farmland and then he would take half of the profit from whatever they harvest. Qasim was looking forward to the harvest that year kasi parang maganda yung magiging yield nila. Fakriya naman is a stay-at-home mother and then the 2 boys, Mohammed and Ahmed, they go to school. Unfortunately, Abir, the oldest daughter, and the youngest daughter, Hadil, they don't go to school kasi sabi ni Qasim, it was too dangerous because of the situation in the area kaya nag-stay at home lang din sila with their mother. On March 12, 2006, around 2:30 p.m., Abu Firas, the cousin of Fakriya, the mother of the Janabi family, got home from work. Pagdating niya daw sa bahay, merong naghihintay sa kanya na kapitbahay ng Janabi family. Tapos sinabi sa kanya, something horrible has happened. The family was murdered. So si Abu Firas, sumakay siya ng kotse niya, sinama niya yung wife niya, and then pumunta sila sa bahay ng family. Ang una nilang nakita pagkadating nila dun sa bahay is yung dalawang magkapatid, si Mohammed and Ahmed. Pagkagaling daw nila ng school, pagdating nila sa bahay, nakita nila kung ano yung state ng house, and then umiiyak daw yung magkapatid. So si Abu Firas, pumasok siya sa bahay and doon niya na nakita mayroong isang body that was on fire. So initially, akala nilang mag-asawa si Qasim yon, yung father. But then may nakita silang timba, tinry nila i-put out yung fire and then that's when they realized it was the body of Abir. In court, Abu Firas was asked to describe the body and ito yung sinabi niya. Her legs were spread out as if she is raped. She was burned from her knees to the middle of her chest and her brain was scattered. After nito, Abu Firas went looking for the rest of the body and they found them in the bedroom. Pagpasok daw niya, nakita niya yung 3 body and ito yung sinabi niya sa court. Qasim was shot from the back of his head and his brain was everywhere and his blood was on the ceiling. I saw Hadil, who was 6 years old, and she suffered from gunshots and she was holding in her hands a plant that kids usually eat. I went towards Fakriya. I thought Fakriya was still alive. I touched her and put my ear on her heart and then I'm sure that she was dead. I turned her and I saw there was a bullet coming from inside the chest and went out of her back. And the blood was everywhere. It was everywhere in the room. Tapos umuwi sila sa bahay kasi gusto iwan ni Abu Firas yung wife niya doon and then pumunta siya sa traffic control point 1 kasi iyon yung TCP na mas malapit sa bahay nila. Sabi ni Abu, pagdating niya daw doon, pagka-report niya, una sa mga Iraqi military and then they escalated it to the American soldiers. Tapos sabi niya, parang around 1 hour daw yung lumipas bago sila umalis. Tapos when they traveled to the crime scene, hindi siya sumabay sa kanila, hindi daw siya pinayagan sumama doon sa mga soldiers, which I kinda understand kasi nga diba may distrust na sila sa mga Iraqi people. Nung pagkaalis daw nila, pumunta muna yung mga soldiers from TCP-1 to TCP-2. TCP-2 kasi yun yung traffic control point closest to the bahay ng Janabi family. Pagdating dun sa crime scene, ang nandun are Sergeant Anthony Iribi, which is the squad leader na nanggaling pa sa TCP-1. May kasama din siyang interpreter and some Iraqi soldiers. And then, meron din 2 soldiers na nanggaling naman from TCP-2. Ang names nila are Paul Edward Cortez and Jesse Von Hess Spillman. Sabi ni Abu Firas, hindi daw siya pinayagan pumasok sa crime scene and makita kung anong ginagawa ng mga soldiers doon. Isa pa sa mga dumating afterwards is isang Iraqi medic. His name is Sergeant Ahmed Abed Kadim Al-Azawi. His job there was to treat the wounded and akala nila mayroon pang buhay doon na pwede niyang i-treat. Ito naman yung statement niya sa court. When I entered the room, there was a very strong smoke smell and also the smell of grilled meat. I saw a body laying on the floor. The legs were spread out. The body was burned, the head and the shoulders. I could see the bone on the fingers. It was a very severe burn, so I knew 100% she was dead. Also, another thing, Ahmed covered the body of Abir out of respect. And ito yung isa sa mga fact na tumatak sa akin kasi parang out of all the people there, he was the only one who kind of showed humanity and pity towards Abir. Actually, tumatak din sa akin yung sinabi niya na it smelled like grilled meat kasi what the diba? Sabi pa ni Ahmed, while investigating the bodies daw, on his peripheral vision, nakita daw niya na parang the sergeants or the soldiers were picking up some stuff from the floor pero hindi niya alam exactly kung ano. Tapos nito, nagpatulong siya sa ibang Iraqi soldiers para i-bag na yung mga katawan and then dinala nila sa ambulance. Si Sergeant Iribi, siya yung leader, di ba, ng squad na nag-attend dun sa crime scene. So, siya din yung nag-conduct ng investigation. But in reality, sinabi niya, wala silang resources for a full criminal investigation. And ang impression talaga ng lahat is that this crime is just part of the usual sectarian conflict between the Sunni and Shia Muslims. So, walang forensic, CSI, whatever na naganap. Nag-take lang ng picture si Sergeant Iribi, tapos yun na yung investigation. Sabi dun sa statements later ni Soldier Cortez and Spillman, sobrang disturbing daw talaga nung amoy dun sa loob ng bahay. Tapos si Cortez nagsuka siya because of it and si Spillman medyo lumalayo daw siya kasi nga hindi niya matake yung amoy. Wala akong nakitang official record nung official statement ni Iribi about the crime. Pero ang sinabi niya sa higher-ups is that the crime is just an attack ng mga counterinsurgents in the area. And then the case was officially closed. A little over 3 months after this, on June 16, 2006, a major attack happened on the 1st Platoon sa may JSB. 3 soldiers were guarding a bridge near Traffic Control Point 4. Their names are Specialist David J. Babineau, age 25, Private First Class Christian Menchaca, age 23, and Private First Class Thomas L. Tucker, age 25. The 3 of them were manning a Humvee near the bridge, so 36 hours na yung shift nila and supposedly hindi ito mangyayari. Very undermanned sila and overworked like the rest of the TCPs, and that's when the attack happened. David Babineau was found dead on the scene pero hindi nila mahanap yung body ni Christian Menchaca and Thomas Tucker. This attack is considered as one of the most horrific days of the 1st Platoon, especially dahil hindi pa nila alam kung nasaan si Menchaca and si Tucker. During all this commotion, Sergeant Iribi was not in the JSB, so nandun siya sa FOB in Yusufiyah. Hindi niya alam kung ano yung nangyayari and yung action. Pero nung nagkakagulo na dun sa FOB, tinanong niya what is happening and yun na sinabi na merong attack sa malapit sa TCP-4 and Babineau is dead and that Menchaca and Tucker are still missing. Sobrang in shock si Iribi because of this accident and with him at the time dun sa FOB is another soldier from the 1st Platoon. Tumingin daw si Iribi sa soldier na to and then sinabi niya, "It just drives me crazy that all good men die and the murderers like Green are home." Tapos sinabi pa niya that he thinks that the murder of the Janabi family was committed by one of them. One of the men daw at TCP2 confessed to him. The soldier that Iribi was talking to is Justin Watt. Justin was 21 or 22 years old at the time. He has a huge respect for the military because his father was a Vietnam War veteran. He enlisted in 2004 and according sa records, mataas daw yung score niya dun sa aptitude test, so he could have applied for a technical or admin role, but he chose infantry to be like a foot soldier. After their conversation, Iribi told Justin to just forget what he said, pero hindi talaga siya makalimutan ni Justin. And hindi siya naniniwala na si Green lang yung may gawa ng lahat kasi parang sabi niya, paano nakaalis si Green na hindi nalaman ng other soldiers in TCP2? So he conducted his own investigation. On March 12, 2006, there were 6 soldiers stationed in TCP2. The first one is Stephen Green. He was 20 at the time. He was a high school dropout and meron siyang previous convictions for drug-related offenses. So isa siya dun sa mga nakapasok sa military with a moral waiver. Meron na daw talagang history si Steven of being racist and very unstable. At the time of Justin's investigation, wala na sa platoon nila si Steven and actually he was sent home. Kaya yung statement ni Iribi, diba, murderers like Green are home. Ang nangyari, may tinrow na puppy from a roof si Steven Green and then because of that incident, he was sent to parang their counselor and doon na siya diniagnose na hindi siya fit to be in the military and he was given an honorable discharge. Water break kasi sobrang init mga mams. Next we have James Barker. He was around 23 or 24 at the time and before he enlisted, he was already married, had 2 children, divorced, and then had another child with a different girlfriend. Sabi, he was very impressionable daw and madali siyang ma-influence. The third soldier in TCP2 was Paul Cortez. Remember, isa siya dun sa mga nag-attend ng crime scene with Sergeant Iribi and siya yung nagsuka because of the smell. 23 years old siya at the time and he was already a sergeant and siya yung in charge sa TCP2. According sa mga statements, he's one of the more capable and intelligent soldier in the platoon kaya siya na-promote as a sergeant. Then we have Jesse Spillman. He was also in the crime scene along with Paul Cortez. He was 20 or 21 at the time and he came from a working class family and raised by his grandmother and an older sister. Sabi, he was a good follower daw but not really leadership material. The fifth soldier is Brian Howard. He's the youngest of the group, only 18 or 19 at the time. Tapos he joined the military immediately after high school. He's one of the newest addition to the squad. Hindi siya kasabay na deploy ng mga naunang first platoon members. The last soldier in TCP2 is Seth Scheller. Hindi ko alam kung anong age niya at the time, pero bago lang din siya, magkasabay sila ni Brian Howard na na-add sa squad. Silang dalawa daw, magkasama sila ng sleeping area while the rest of the soldiers in TCP2 stays in one room they call the NCO room. Supposedly, yung room na yon is para lang kay Cortez kasi siya yung NCO or non-commissioned officer in charge, but in reality, 4 yung soldiers na natutulog dun sa area na yon. Ang strategy ni Justin sa pag-investigate sa TCP2 is to find the weakest link and he zeroed in on Brian Howard. I guess because Brian was the youngest and also he's one of the newest additions to the squad. In June 19, nagkaroon sila ng conversation. Ang ginawa ni Justin is, kailangan kasi maging discreet siya diba? So para hindi ma-tip off si Brian. So ang ginawa niya, nagpanggap siya na parang alam niya na kung ano yung nangyari, na parang alam niya yung mga details, ganyan, para mag-spill na ng beans si Brian. Si Brian naman, naniwala sa kanya. So parang naisip siguro ni Brian, alam naman niya so I guess okay lang na ikwento ko na sa kanya. Ito yung nalaman niya. Noong March 12 daw, madaming mga soldiers na naka-leave or in their mid-tour trips back to the US. So undermanned talaga sila. Yung mga soldiers daw sa TCP2 were already doing 18-hour shifts. Tapos 21 days na silang walang rest. Sabi ni Brian, there would always be one soldier on guard duty sa mga TCPs and in that morning, si Seth Scheller yung in charge. Tapos, the rest of them, 5 soldiers, were inside the actual building ng TCP. Si Brian daw was just inside reading while also listening to some music, while the other 4 soldiers were playing cards and also drinking. Supposedly, bawal mag-consume ng alcohol yung mga soldiers, pero at this point, parang wala ng proper decorum, hindi na talaga na-follow yung rules. Tapos may mga nabasa pa ako na meron din daw mga instances na nagdo-drugs sila, parang nabibili nila yung drugs from the Iraqi soldiers. Anyway, so nagpe-play daw ng card games sila, Barker, Green, Spillman, and Cortez. Tapos ayun na nga, nagiinuman daw sila. After some time, lumapit daw si Cortez kay Howard, tapos inabutan siya ng parang two-way radio, tapos na kay Howard yung isa. Ang utos sa kanya ni Cortez, di ba leader si Cortez nung TCP, ang sabi daw sa kanya ni Cortez, call me kung merong convoy na dadaan or kung merong Iraqi na lalapit or kung whatever happens, just try to call me. Hindi niya daw alam kung saan sila pupunta, pero napansin niya na they left while carrying weapons. Sabi ni Howard, pagkabalik daw nila, binigyan siya ni Cortez ng isang box na may laman na parang yung mga ninja suit nila. Tinignan ko kung ano yung ninja suit. Parang ito yung kulay black na manipis na base layer that they would wear under their clothes kapag malamig. Sabi daw ni Cortez sa kanya, sunugin niya. Kasi dun sa TCP, meron silang parang dalawang fire pit na dun sila nagtatapon ng mga trash nila. Yun yung trash disposal system nila. Sinusunog lang nila doon and consistently merong fire doon. Sabi daw sa kanya ni Cortez, sunugin niya doon yung mga ninja suit, which Brian did. Tapos, nag-gather daw sila doon sa fire pit, Howard with the rest of the 4 soldiers. Tapos, nagsabi daw si Green na whatever happens, you can all just blame it on me. Tapos, parang doon na nagkaroon ng context clues si Brian. Parang na-figure out niya, meron silang ginawa na something very bad and Green is willing to take the fall for it. Tapos sabi ni Cortez dun sa kanilang lahat to never speak of it to anyone ever again. Nung nangyayari tong investigation ni Justin, Christian Menchaca and Thomas Tucker were still missing. So very high yung tension in the first platoon and also for the entire company, and everyone was on high alert. On June 19, 2006, 3 days after the attack, the bodies of the 2 soldiers were found. I don't want to talk about the injuries kasi sobrang gruesome talaga ng details. So I'm just gonna skip over that. But it was very obvious that they were tortured and their deaths were brutal. Hindi sila namatay dun sa initial attack. On top of all this stress, Justin also had other things he was preoccupied about, which is what he knows about what actually happened on March 12. So he was debating what to do and it was a very hard decision for him. Ibebetray niya ba yung mga brothers niya to do what's right or is he going to cover it up? Sobrang moral dilemma to and parang iniisip ko, what would I have done? I don't know. I really don't know what I would do. But anyway, si Justin, he was battling with this decision. He even called his father kasi di ba war veteran yung dad niya to ask what he was going to do without giving him the specifics. But in the end, he decided he was going to tell the truth and parang blow this case open and become a whistleblower. There was one squad leader in whom Justin trusted and his name is Sergeant John DM. Justin confided in Sergeant DM and he told Justin that he had a moral obligation to report it to the proper authorities. Sabi ni DM, they have to spread it around so that no one person can bury the story. Tapos, neither of them trusted anyone from their chain of command kasi obviously si Iribi covered up the fact. Tapos yung battalion commander pa nila, si Lieutenant Colonel Kunk, was a very toxic leader. So ang naging decision nilang dalawa is that Justin is going to report it to his combat stress counselor. Sa military, meron silang combat stress counselors. Ito yung body na nag-dismiss kay Stephen Green because of his mental health issues. So on June 20, 2006, Justin Watt reported to his combat stress counselor what he knows. The combat stress people, they are mandated to report to the higher-ups or escalate if they deem necessary. Mabilis umaksyon si Justin kasi di ba nalaman niya in June 16, tapos June 20, nakapag-report na siya. Parang less than 4 days lang bago siya nakapag-decide na okay, he's going to tell someone who has more authority and can do something about this. After niyang mag-report, Justin was very scared. Kasi feeling ng ibang mga soldiers doon, traitor siya, and nakaka-receive daw si Justin ng mga death threats. So obviously, scared siya, and na-ostracize siya doon sa unit nila. On June 24, finally, an official investigation started. Very hush-hush yung investigation and the media didn't know anything until July 10. On that day, a video was released from an insurgent group showing the mutilated bodies of Christian Menchaca and Thomas Tucker. Sabi nung nagsasalita doon sa video, this is revenge for our sister who was dishonored by a soldier of the same brigade. Nung chinecheck ko yung mga dates dito, parang napaisip ako. Kasi diba, yung attack dun sa 3 soldiers was on June 19. Tapos nag-report lang si Justin to the authorities on June 20. So nauna yung attack bago pa mag-umpisa yung investigation. So ibig sabihin, alam na nung mga insurgent na involved yung mga soldier dun sa murder nung Janabi family bago sila umatak. Tapos it also brought me back dun sa pag-report. Bakit hindi pumunta yung pinsan ni Fakria sa TCP2 na mas malapit? Bakit dun siya sa TCP1 nag-report? Were they already suspecting na may involvement yung US soldiers sa TCP2? Sabi niya dun sa official statement niya ni Abu Firas, yung cousin, hindi daw niya in-expect. Pero parang looking back at all this, maybe meron silang suspicion. Maybe not Abu Firas himself, but maybe some neighbors saw what actually happened or something. Pero speculation ko lang to, wag niyo ako masyadong paniwalaan. So, natapos na yung investigation, and at this point, diba, 4 na lang out of the 5 soldiers are in active duty kasi Stephen Green was already honorably discharged because of his mental health issues. And since they're still in active duty, hindi sila matatry in normal federal civilian court. Meron silang tinatawag na court-martial, which is military court. Anong difference ng military court sa normal trial? Walang jury na magde-decide kung guilty ba or not. Tapos mas mabilis siya, and walang court files na available to the public, so wala akong information masyado na nakuha doon, only what the press reported. Si Seth Scheller was not charged kasi it was established na he was in the Humvee the whole time, so wala siyang alam talaga sa kung ano nangyari, and no one implicated him. Ang charges dun sa court-martial were conspiracy, rape, murder, dereliction of duty, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and being an accessory after the fact. Si Iribe was the one charged with dereliction of duty, pero he was offered an immunity from prosecution in exchange for his statement against the others. He was also let go from the army with a less than honorable discharge, like not fully dishonorable discharge, but less than honorable. Nabawasan yung benefits niya because of this. Si Brian Howard naman, yung youngest, and siya yung naiwan with the radio na binigay ni Cortez, and siya yung nakausap ni Justin Watt. Ang charge naman against him was conspiracy to obstruct justice and being an accessory to the fact. He was sentenced to 27 months and a demotion with a dishonorable discharge. On November 2006, James Paul Barker pled guilty to rape and murder to avoid the death penalty. He was sentenced to 90 years in prison with a dishonorable discharge. On February 2007 naman, si Paul Edward Cortez pled guilty to rape and the murders. He was sentenced to 100 years in prison, and part of his plea deal is that he was going to be a witness sa case against Stephen Green. Feeling ko, mas mahaba yung sentence ni Paul Cortez compared to James Barker kasi siya yung leader ng TCP, so parang mas meron siyang duty to uphold what was right. In August 2007, si Jesse Von Hess-Spillman naman, hindi siya nag-plead guilty, so he actually went to military court for his trial, maybe because he thought he had a chance, pero still, he was convicted of conspiracy, rape, housebreaking, and arson. So dumami pa yung charges sa kanya, and he was sentenced to the longest 110 years in prison. Tapos dishonorable discharge din. All 3 of them are eligible for parole after 10 years. Tapos si Spillman, he actually also gave a statement sa trial ni Stephen Green. Yung defense nila tried to justify the crime by discussing the hardships that they faced, but the prosecutor said that the trial is for murder, not war. It's for rape, not war. Si Stephen Green naman, he was also charged in November of 2006, pero mas mahaba yung process kasi nga sa civilian court siya, so it was going to be a federal trial. Ang charges against him are conspiracy, aggravated sexual abuse, and 4 counts of premeditated murder. Side note, nag-try siyang mag-re-enlist sa army para hindi mag-face ng federal trial, para ma-military court lang din siya, pero hindi yun napayagan, so natuloy yung trial niya. Si Cortez and Spillman testified against him, and their statements brought us a lot of the information that we know about this case. So ito na nga yung buong story, kumapit kayo. So, Ang alam natin, totoo nga na naglalaro silang apat ng cards, si Spillman, Cortez, Barker, and Green. At some point, umalis daw si Spillman, so tatlo na lang silang natira. Sabi nila, si Stephen Green daw had been going on and on about killing Iraqis. Sabihin daw nila, nag-try pumasok dun sa traffic control point yung mga Iraqis and patayin na lang nila. Pero si Barker naman, parang sabi niya, hold up, meron akong ibang plan. Ang gustong mangyari ni Barker is mang-rape na lang daw sila. Meron daw siyang alam na isang bahay malapit dun sa TCP nila na merong isang girl, tapos isang male adult lang daw yung nandun sa bahay. So parang in his mind, it's an easy target. Tapos the rest of the afternoon, silang tatlo, nagplano na lang sila kung paano nila i-execute yun. Parang sobrang excited daw ni Barker and ni Green, according to Cortez. So of course, baka kaya hindi niya sinabing excited din siya, pero naki-ride along din siya. Tapos, doon naman sa statement ni Spillman, sabi niya, after niya daw umalis doon sa game and sa drinking session, pumasok daw siya doon sa area kung saan sila natutulog. Nag-try daw siya magbasa pero hindi siya makafocus kasi nga, bust na siya. Tapos, after some time, pumasok daw si Cortez doon and sinabi, come on, let's go. Hindi niya daw alam kung ano exactly yung gagawin nila, pero nakita niya, nagbibihis yung tatlo into their ninja suit. Yung sinabi ko kanina na parang black base layer nila. Tapos, si Cortez naman daw, pumunta siya to the front ng TCP kung nasaan si Seth Scheller. Di ba si Scheller yung guard on duty at that time? Parang chinek niya lang yung status kung ano yung nangyayari dun sa harap. Tapos bumalik na siya sa loob and dun na nakinausap si Brian Howard and iniwan kay Brian yung radio. Kasi di ba binigyan niya ng instructions si Brian na parang tawagan sila if anything happens. Tapos si Spillman pala, ang suot niya lang is yung normal niya na pants and boots. Nung magsusuot daw dapat siya nung full combat attire niya, sinabihan siya ni Cortez na you don't need that. So parang this led me to believe na hindi talaga siya part ng planning kasi hindi niya alam na kailangan niya magsuot ng black na ninja suit. Pagkadating nila dun sa bahay ng Janabi family, pinurse daw nila si Kasim, Fakriya, and Hadil into the bedroom. Tapos si Stephen Green daw pumasok dun sa bedroom with them. Tapos inutusan nila si Spillman na maghintay dun sa labas ng bedroom kind of as a lookout. Medyo graphic na itong susunod kong ikukwento, so you can skip if you don't want to hear it. Ayun na nga, so si Abir na lang yung natira, the 14-year-old daughter. Kinuha siya ni Cortez and ni Barker, dinala siya sa living room. Tapos sabi ni Cortez, nag-hyperventilate daw si Abir pero hindi siya sumisigaw, umiiyak lang siya and parang trying to breathe. Tapos sinabunutan niya daw si Abir and pinull down niya to the ground. Tapos itinaas niya daw yung dress ni Abir and then sinira niya yung stockings. Barker held Abir's hands over her head while Cortez raped her. Tapos, they switched naman and then Barker started raping her while Cortez restrained her. Sabi ni Cortez dun sa official statement niya, they didn't succeed in raping her or hindi talaga nila fully na-rape si Abir. But I'm not sure kung nagde-deflect lang siya. Kasi diba, why would you admit to that? Tinanong siya, did you get an erection? Parang sabi niya, no, I can't. Parang, I don't know, but I'm inclined to believe that they actually did. While they were raping Abir, they heard multiple gunshots from the bedroom. Si Spillman daw, pumasok siya dun sa bedroom to see what was happening and then nakita na niya na Green shot all three of them. Tapos pinagalitan niya daw si Stephen Green and then the two of them went to the living room. Sabi ni Green sa kanilang tatlo, they're all dead. I killed them all. Tapos siya naman yung nag-umpisa mag-rape kay Abir while Cortez held down her hands. Tapos sabi ni Cortez, sinabihan niya daw sila na they need to go. Ang ginawa daw ni Green, meron siyang nakuha na pillow somewhere in the living room. Tinakpan niya yung mukha ni Abir and then he shot her in the face 3 times. Barker naman found a kerosene lamp before they left and then he poured the oil dun sa katawan ni Abir and then he lit her on fire. As they were leaving, sabi ni Green, kinot niya daw yung parang gas pipes or something para magkaroon ng explosion, pero walang explosion na naganap. They went back to the TCP2 the same way they came and then na-follow na yung story ni Howard na ibinigay sa kanya yung mga ninja suit for him to burn. Additionally, sinabihan din daw ni Cortez si Spillman to get rid of the gun that they used and he actually did. One other new thing that came from these statements is the confession of Stephen Green to Sergeant Iribi. After daw nung discovery nung crime, pagkabalik ni Iribi sa TCP2, nilapitan daw siya ni Stephen Green and nandun din si Barker as a witness and sinabi ni Stephen Green kay Iribi na he was responsible for all of it. Pero nung ni-report that night ni Iribe sa higher-ups kung ano yung nangyari dun sa crime, hindi niya yun sinabi. Yung official report niya, it's just part of the sectarian conflict that usually happens in the area. Tapos di ba nagpipicture si Iribe dun sa crime scene as part of his investigation? Meron daw isang instance na pagtaas niya ng parang mattress or kumot, meron daw siyang nakita doon na parang bullet casing. Tapos, yung specific bullet na daw yun can be traced back to the military. Yun yung nakita nung medic na nag-attend na parang may pinupulot daw from the floor yung mga soldiers. So, knowing all of this, parang naging malinaw talaga yung cover-up ni Iribe. He knew from the first day na it was Stephen Green who did it, pero he didn't say anything. Tapos isa pa na parang naisip ko is, remember yung sinabi ni Stephen Green na blame it all on him? And all of these statements, parang siya lang talaga yung biniblame nilang lahat. What if mas madami yung involvement or yung part ng ibang soldiers, pero they're just blaming it all on Green? At the end of the trial, Stephen Green was found guilty. He was convicted of obstruction of justice, use of firearms during the commission of violent crimes, conspiracy to commit aggravated sexual assault, conspiracy to commit murder, felony murder, aggravated sexual abuse, and premeditated murder. He didn't get a life sentence because the jury was not able to unanimously decide, but the judge sentenced him to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole. So where are they now? Brian Howard was released on parole after serving only 17 months of his 27-month sentence, and then the 3 other soldiers, Spillman, Barker, and Cortez, are still in prison. Stephen Green, he appealed in 2011, but it was denied. In 2014, he died by suicide while in prison. Justin Watt faced immense hostility while he was still in the unit, so he had to be transferred. He also received, as I mentioned, explicit death threats from some fellow soldiers who viewed him as a traitor. He did provide official testimony as well sa court-martial and sa trial ni Stephen Green, and now he's working as an advocate for ethics and sometimes also doing consulting work with the military. He's now a small business owner, and he did a Reddit AMA about 15 years ago talking about his experience as a whistleblower. One of the things that makes me the most mad about this case is how little we know about the 2 remaining brothers, the surviving family members. The older brother testified against Green, meron siyang statements, but they never received any victim compensation. One Turkish news outlet did an investigative journalism piece on the brothers. One of their reporters went to Iraq, to Baghdad, to kind of trace them down. They're living in the same general province, but not in the triangle of death anymore, and they're living with a paternal uncle. Like many Iraqis after the war, the brothers now were dreaming of leaving the country and settling somewhere where they can live safely and with dignity. Side note, yung correspondent nitong reporter na to sa Iraq is famous for throwing a shoe kay George Bush Jr. During a press conference. As I was researching this case, I came across some other incidents of war crimes by the US military, and here are some of the more standout ones na sobrang bigat sa damdamin. And if you want to read more about it, you can. Merong mga extensive research and pictures documenting these cases. But kung sensitive nga kayo, I would advise against it. The first one is the My Lai Massacre in Vietnam that happened in 1968. 100 soldiers went into a small Vietnamese village and they murdered 504 civilians, mostly women and children and some older people. They were drowned, shot, and also burned and raped. Meron din isang parang whistleblower sa case na to. His name was Hugh Thompson. He was a pilot ng isang helicopter, and when he saw what was happening, he went down from his plane, and then his 2 crewmates from the helicopter, they tried helping the locals, and then they started ringing the alarm bells and trying to alert higher-ups of what was happening. That's why the massacre was stopped. 26 soldiers were charged for that crime, even though there were 100 soldiers who came, but only one of them was ever convicted. His sentence was 3.5 years in prison, but then President Richard Nixon, he changed that charge to be served in house arrest. The next case is the Abu Ghraib torture and prisoner abuse. It came to light in 2004 when the media was able to get their hands on pictures and videos from the prison. It showed the level of abuse that the American soldiers were inflicting on the detainees. Ang daming pictures ng inhumane treatment and humiliation. Tapos meron silang isang detainee doon na parang may mental health issue siya, and then he was being treated like a dog na meron siyang leash, and then he was crawling on the floor and he was being made to bark daw. But that's not even the worst of it. And then there was this one senator who was kind of mad that the media was able to get their hands on the picture before it even reached Pentagon. Like, come on, is that what you're going to focus on? Hi. Anyway, 11 soldiers were convicted, but most of them parang just got a slap on the wrist and only demotion. The longest time that was served from that crime was 6 years out of the 10-year sentence. The last one is the Haditha Massacre, also in Iraq and also in 2005, like the Janabi Massacre. There was a roadside bomb that killed a Marine, and then the unit went on kind of like a revenge spree against the locals. They were in rampage mode and killed 24 civilians, mostly children and women then. 8 people were charged, but charges were dropped against 6 of them, and then isa was acquitted during trial. The only one convicted was their squad leader, Frank Wuterich, but his sentence was only demotion and 0 jail time. All of these 3 mentioned cases have extensive photographic evidence, but imagine, what if walang photographic evidence? Would these cases have come to light? And then locally, we have Jennifer Laude. In 2014, she was murdered by Joseph Scott Pemberton in Olongapo, where the US base is. Ang defense ni Pemberton was trans-panic daw. He was found guilty of homicide lang instead of murder, and his sentence was between 6 to 12 years. Pero in 2015, then President Duterte pardoned him, and then he was sent back home to the United States. Anyway, going back to the Janabi family, the Iraqi government requested for an independent inquiry into the case, but it was denied. And then their human rights minister asked the United Nations to stop granting US troops immunity from local prosecution. Merong mga videos that emerged from, like interviews from the local, they're saying these soldiers should be tried in Iraq and face Iraqi sentences, which would include execution. Sobrang heavy ng research nitong case na to for me because of the actual crime itself, the other war crimes that the US committed against civilians. I mean, wala akong first-hand experience sa pagsaserve in the military or anything remotely close to it, so I can't say I wouldn't snap. I was also looking at the social psychology aspect. Kasi si Cortez, for example, he had a very good background and upbringing. Merong mga statements from people who knew him before he started serving in the military saying na they never would have believed anyone who told them that he did those crimes. So what would have caused a person to snap like that? I mean, I'm not trying to justify their actions, pero if you think about it, they were all below 25 years old when the crime happened. So their prefrontal cortex was underdeveloped pa. Tapos the conditions that they were in, like why are we sending these young men to war with all these weapons at their disposal? Like for example, iniisip ko, ano bang ginagawa ko when I was 21? I wouldn't trust myself with scissors, let alone a gun. Pero yun nga, wala naman akong first-hand experience being at war, so what do I know? Tapos meron pa akong nabasa, it's called the Lucifer effect. Parang merong isang nag-research sa isang prison. Basta ang findings nila is that someone who is individually moral can be corrupted if placed in a group setting under very specific pressure. Ang theory behind it is parang nahahati yung responsibility amongst the group so one individual does not feel the full guilt of the action. Ano nga yung sinasabi? Di ba sa Tagalog, meron tayong saying something about bulok na kamatis, like remove it kasi it would make the other kamatis bulok as well. So parang feeling ko ganun yung nangyari. Like Stephen Green was the worst of them all and then he just corrupted everyone and they were all easily corruptible dahil nga sa situation that they were in dun sa triangle of death. Pero hindi ko din alam kasi si Justin Watt, for example, he was in the same situation as all of them but he was able to keep his character intact and he in the end brought justice to the family. So I would ask you, if ikaw yung nasa situation ni Justin Watt, would you have done the same? Would you have reported it? Or would you have kept your mouth shut? Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you liked it. And as I mentioned before, please consider subscribing and liking this video if you actually liked it. And if you have any case that you want me to cover, please let me know in the comments. And I'll see you guys in a bit. Bye. Conspiracy to commit because of the hardships that they face. Nag-take lang daw ng mga picture si Shark. Nag-take lang daw ng mga picture si Shark. Nag-take lang daw ng mga picture si Shark.